Hello and welcome to Goa 365's Story Behind the Story. However, this is the story behind the story with a twist. It's the year-ender. With us on this show are a very distinguished ensemble. Starting with Sabina from Bailacho. Welcome, ma'am.
Thanks.
Also with us is architect activist who's been in the news lately because of what's happening around in the state, Talullah D'Silva. Welcome, ma'am. And a student. How can we forget a student for this in this year? Because the students have been under pressure, under the spotlight, under lots of things. And also because of the shadow of the corona, of the COVID, agriculture has been one of the points of focus of this year. And with us is Miguel Braganza of BSG, Botanical Society. Before that he was in government service, agriculture. He's a man who wears many hats. Welcome, Miguel, to our show. Guys, this year has been interesting to say the least. It's been scary, but it has opened a lot of eyes. It has shown us, it has given a mirror to us in many ways, to exactly what it's given us time to think, otherwise it's always a mad rush. Sabina, this is an issue. In lockdown, we were locked down for months. In lockdown, people, couples, families have been stuck where mostly there would not be too much of interaction. So this has been one of the things that has been there for women, I feel. But besides that, during the year, what are the issues that have come up for you, families, women, various issues?
There has been a wide-ranging issues as far as women are concerned. We started the year with doing an evaluation of 25 years of the Beijing Conference, that is the 4th UN World Conference on Women, and there has been evaluation meetings at the state level, at the central level, National Commission for Women, UN bodies, and we come back to evaluate what has been done for women. And lockdown period has been very bad, especially for women who have been experiencing violence, because there was no way they could communicate, there was no transport. So even if they want to escape a violent situation at home and go to their parents' place or a neighbor, a family friend, they couldn't do so. So they suffered in silence. Then secondly, they couldn't go to the police stations because again there was no transport, and whenever we called up the police, everybody seemed to be busy, and the whole administration was involved in first implementing the Bandh or lockdown of the state. So there were cases where people were beaten up, and when they went out to get food, there were issues of children not having food, and the ones who were really the deprived lot, the poor lot, didn't get food. So as we reached out, there were a lot of migrant people who were around. So you can't give food to one family and there's another family who was starving. So at least we were really, so many calls. So first was the issue of food. But the violence was where we really had a tough time reaching out. So we could only tell neighbors, if there's some problem at home, just call the neighbors, call out, shout, so that somebody can come who's close by, can come over. And people who were not allowed to go to their neighbor's house also, so nobody would entertain you. So that was a really big challenge that we have. And now, as the year came, the restrictions were eased, and women started coming. We have very horrendous stories what happened during the lockdown period. And they are talking, they said, this incident happened now, but during lockdown this happened. So they didn't come to say that in lockdown something happened, but now as they are narrating their thing. Like now today's one case which we were dealing with. There was a case of sexual harassment. She went to the police station to register because there are several people. The villagers got together and broke down their house. Then the whole people, and she was beaten and she was thrown on the road, and that was last year. And she was in GMC. FIR was lodged, and the whole administration, worked to evict them from the village. The Talati declared a house was dilapidated. Then the Mamladar moved in to told the Chogle housing colony where they were staying to evict them. After evicting them, today they tell them to move tomorrow, and then they bring police busload and they throw them out and arrest them, saying that you obstructed. 4 days they are in jail. When they come back, half their belongings are gone and robbed, and few things are there at a school, Balchi school. Now they are there at the government primary school. Again a notice comes, you have to leave tomorrow. And no, what do you call it? What I'm saying is the administration has to be sensitive. Instead of saying helping them to repair their house and to stay in that same place, take action against the ones who have assaulted. You can have issues with people, but you cannot assault and things like that. None of these institutions which are supposed to assist women functioned at that point of time. Then the lockdown happened, and so it was a complete status quo. Just you couldn't move any authority.
Talullah, this year, I mean, whatever 9-10 months of the lockdown, even before that, was very eventful. Could you give us a sort of a breakdown or a general overview on what civic society activists, all that was very, very involved? Could you give us a general breakdown?
Yeah, so basically I think the lockdown which started on March 22nd, was something that, it was like as if all of us were running and going about our usual, whether it's work and life and everything, and suddenly the lockdown put a stop to everything. It made us pull back and reflect. And in that period, I think what was most, difficult to deal with was governance and mechanisms which were breaking down. Like Sabina rightly said, there are a lot of, I'm a single parent, so similarly there are a lot of women who felt isolated in their families, lot of challenges, but no access to law, safety and support, right? So I've been working with a lot of children and a lot of different sets or groups of people, let's say a family setup or larger set of students. So, during the lockdown, there were so many challenges where some of our students needed, relief. And it was first of all difficult to go to areas which were already like a hot spot, right? And mechanisms were such that, let's say with the police, now even Sabina talked about, mechanisms that are there to support. And the very police that are supposed to support, you would find conflicts in that. And basically, I think people also didn't know what were the norms to be followed. There was all this, ambiguity. Yeah. So one was when we were going with relief, we found that there was a lot of difficulty. Relief was not reaching families, and we had desperate calls. And then we would connect with, other NGOs or organizations which could provide for relief and making trips on our own to the families that were there. Second was, I do a lot of work in environment and do a lot of work with children. So the lockdown was good because I could still do, with a large amount of children which were limited to, online learning, which has literally been a disaster because a lot of children which were otherwise not given gadgets were now given gadgets. Parents were working, they were not able to control this. So during that period I came up with a model where we could take children out and do something called the backyard class, and it was possible with neighborhood children but not possible with a larger set of children. Like I still work with students of colleges where I'll have participation of maybe 1 or 2 active students in an online model, whereas the rest all are sort of distracted. So mechanisms that way, while being technically in place, were actually failing. Yeah. The other thing is, because of the environmental work that I do, there were a lot of decisions that were taken, during the lockdown, which were not done in a democratic manner. So let's say the Mollem issue, that has been the biggest one, yeah, and the double tracking of the railway, the highway, widening, all these issues. Although let us say in governance there were wrong decisions taken or decisions that were not participated, there were a lot of people who wrote, following the provisions that were there, but nobody seemed to be listening, and people felt let down during that time. So I feel the biggest setback which we have experienced as a group of people who are passionate about the environment, or educators working with children who are talking about protection of the environment, we felt that the very mechanisms that are there in law or in governance failed, during the period of the lockdown because of decisions not being taken democratically.
I want to go a little further from this. Now, Shaunak, besides, of course, I'm sure it will bring it along here. Besides the lockdown, could you give us something of the year generally?
Okay. So, the primary thing that makes us students is us engaging in this quest for knowledge, is us engaging for this quest of excellence, of sciences, of arts. This process was hindered because usually we lay a great lot of emphasis on the relationship we share with our teachers, that rapport. That rapport helps in this transfer of education, this transfer of knowledge. And this is something that we have been quite used to for quite long, to be a social function, something that is face to face. When it moved to something being online, it was immediately quite difficult for students to adapt into a new surroundings, into a new environment. And to a great extent, it benefited the students of a upper class part of society, because the lower element of society, which did not have access to technology, was left handicapped by this situation. So we are seeing that the policy of education to be imparted equally was not satisfied at this point. So this was one thing that overwhelmingly came about as a part of the lockdown. But to move forward from that, I think another really important part about us being the youth is we have a vision of what we see ourselves as in the future. Because we are here to last for a bit longer. But so what has happened is, this lockdown and the steps involved in it, or the repercussions which have come about as she dwelled on the project of Mollem, catapulted the youth into the active social stream. We see that the Mollem movement is a movement that is largely led by children, whether it is students objecting to the blatant, illegitimate and scrupulous manner in which decisions were taken without respect for the right to protest. If you see, all the environmental clearances were given by a ministry, rather a minister who is both Minister for Environment and who is both Minister for Heavy Industries. Where does he draw the dichotomy? Where does he draw the balance? There is no explanation on that. People are not given a forum to discuss, to debate, because it was done in the midst of great secrecy amongst this lockdown. We see that all of these projects have been done keeping in mind a future necessity, not what is done right now. We see that, but this future necessity is not something that the youth have actively voiced their concerns about. We have not seen that there is an active requirement for this. Let me dwell on some statistics. Mormugao port currently handles something like 11 million tons of coal. The Samudra Mala project says that in the next 15 years we will handle 51 million tons of coal. This government disagrees that the double tracking, the extension of railways, the putting of electricals is not for coal. There is no large discrepancy between freight and passenger trains over there. This discrepancy is only to accommodate the coal being transported. And the coal being transported for whom? While the Prime Minister is making speeches at Paris, at the Paris Convention, saying that India is moving away from coal, India is moving to renewable sources, we are actually taking a very retrogressive step over here. And this coal, which is being brought into India, will be taken to Adani's Goda factories. And who is the electricity being sold to? It's being sold to Bangladesh. So we are bearing the environmental damage of something that is never going to benefit us. And the youth have decided that this is simply unacceptable. And for too long, we have taken to protest, and we have seen that the government is very hesitant to entertain protests. Let us talk about the very arbitrary arrest which took place that day. That arrest took place under the premise of preventive detention, which, if I am not mistaken, is section 151 of the CRPS. Section 151 of CRPC needs to have a definite element of causation. This definite element of causation should be of such nature that it may cause a disturbance. The main reason that they cited was that the president was passing by through that area. The protests were peaceful, they were sitting in a single place, there was no slogan hearing, there was no obstruction. What element of threat was there to the government unless the government is feeling scared of people voicing their views against this? That arrest which took place arbitrarily was a blatant disregard for the law, was a blatant disregard for the voices of the people. And rather than listening to the youth, engaging in dialogue about something that is going to impact our future, sustainable development, keeping in mind our necessities, the necessities of our future generations, this government is only interested in silencing our views at this point. They have not taken it even a single point beyond that. Majority of the work of the development has been taken. When there is still litigation, the government has not halted the work, which is usually done, even if we see in the case of Mandavi when the issue of mangroves was brought on. So I think the time has come that a greater appeal has to be made to the youth, because right now it's only been constrained to social media and few these things. We need to get even people on the ground working for this movement, because it's best put in the words of Justice Gautam Patel, who was sitting at the High Court that time, when the issue of shifting the National Green Tribunal from Pune to Delhi came up. He said, if there are a lot of cases at NGT Pune from Goa, it is not because Goans are people who want to come about with litigious issues. It is because Goans love their homeland, and there is something worth protecting for, something worth fighting for, which we should continue for.
COVID was an opportunity for various things, agriculture and whatever. So over the year, I would like you to give us a general brief of what happened on that front and the possible reasons why they could have happened over the year.
Yeah. COVID, of course, has occupied 9 months of the 12 months in 2020. So 75% of the period with COVID. But we have had some changes which have been in the natural progression of things, in agriculture especially, and in environment a little bit. One was the change of the Director of Agriculture. A new person has taken charge, and he took charge on the 1st of March. Very pragmatic changes which are seen in the field. For example, never before was the prices of seeds fixed in the month of April. It would normally be in the month of May. And so there would be no transactions in the month of April. With this director, we have had not only the prices of seeds, but even before they sowed the first seed, the price of seedling also was fixed. So people had access. Now, the moment COVID lockdown happened, end of March, he ensured that the officers moved out to the field. Village by village, they have sold the seeds, found out what are the issues, who needs tractors, who needs what, and those issues have been sorted out. When the impact of COVID came also, the operators of the harvesting machine, because March, April was the harvesting time. The operators of harvesting machines were mostly migrants. They went back, or they were enclosed in their own ghettos wherever they were staying. They don't live in posh areas, and those areas under lockdown, there was no movement in some areas. There were no operators. Now this man arranged for a Goan person who knew how to operate machinery to train others and got operators onto those machines. Two things happened. People were at home and they had nothing to do. Online classes had not started. And transportation had slowed down, so they needed food. People started growing microgreens, immediately what they can eat in 15 days' time, and vegetables. The quantity of seed that was used in the last Kharif season was 5 times the annual average of the previous 5 years.
Which is a plus.
Huge,
Big
thing.
yeah.
Wow.
400% increase is a big thing. And this season, where water is a shortage, monsoon time, God waters everything. Now water is a shortage. Even then, the seed demand is double. Instead of 1 ton, it's 2.2 tons. So that much of more vegetables, seeds coming in, you can multiply that by a factor of 25 for the number of kilos of vegetables that will be available. Could be a factor of 100, but it's not in Goa because we don't grow with that much care. Now, what happens is, Shaunak has spoken about Section 144 being the restriction. 151 for arrest.
And 140.
144 for free movement. Section 144 is a nice act from the British Raj for all of us who are used to standing in a queue, even for our buffet.
Is Section 144.
For sitting in rows in our classrooms.
Section 144.
If you go today to Baga, to Kalangut, to Kolba,
There's no section
there's no Section 144.
But Section 144 is still in place.
It's still in place.
Yeah.
If you gather more than 4 people at one place with a common intent, it's illegal.
See, what
These
the
people,
dissenting, no?
buses out going to the beach is common intent.
Okay. Yeah.
It's common intent.
Yeah, good point.
They should be arrested.
And on that same day which Shaunak talked about on Liberation Day in the church square that we were there, you know, there were throngs of tourists around, but the tourists were not disturbed at all, you know, by the police.
No,
It was
and look
only-
at the irony of it. It was on a day of liberation, the day we celebrate this freedom we got from the
Yes.
tyranny of the dictator called Salazar. And Pramod Sawant's behavior is not very far apart from that.
Right to dissent, it was a very important issue which was suppressed during this entire term. In whichever field, we look at women's
COVID term,
issues
you
with
Yes.
COVID term?
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
So
Not
anybody.
just COVID, I'm sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
but not just COVID. We have seen right to dissent being suppressed right from the beginning of 2020. Be it the protests which have taken place in universities like
Universities,
Aligarh
yeah,
Muslim
yeah,
University,
yeah.
Jawaharlal Nehru
Right,
University.
JNU also.
Yeah, I'm
You-
restricting to go.
Yeah.
No,
At a
but-
national level, it was
Of course.
far more
Worse.
violence that we have, state violence we have seen. If we compare, but in Goa also, even a small dissent, you know, people coming to protest, something is not there, water is not there. And when we talk about women's issues is not only about beating and sexual assault and
Surely,
something.
of course.
It's to do with your property rights. During this term, because you cannot go on, there have been encroachment, there have been conversion. I can't tell you the kind of issues that have come. It's not just about, you know, violence against women. So right to speak, you are arrested.
Last, I think any of the students' agitation came during our time when
Right.
we were
1980s.
We were
Yes,
students,
80s when we came out on the streets and brought them. But it's very good. It started in Delhi and then it came to Goa and all this. It's good, but is it because is this a positive byproduct of COVID? Like,
Well,
I think-
I'm really
Yeah.
sorry, but
Yeah, both of you.
rather than
Yeah.
just a product of COVID,
Byproduct.
I don't even think it's a byproduct
Yeah.
It's
of
not.
COVID.
Yeah.
I think it's a byproduct of the social scenario we're
Yeah.
looking at today,
Yeah.
where the idea of our nation has seen drastic changes in the past few years, positive or negative based on your ideology. That's up to you. But when such kind of changes are being seen, there is a natural tendency for people to oppose change, okay, which is sometimes for the beneficial aspects of society. So what has happened is, today the society may change to a good extent. Tomorrow it is these students who will be the people who are running the economy, who are
Right.
running the country, who are basically the wheels of this big machinery of this institution. So when we have to control this institution in the future, we also want to have some degree of say. And when that degree of say, when the actions are not representative of our opinion, that is the point at which people protest.
Okay.
Right.
then-
I also agree with this because, see, when we are teaching as mentors, as parents, we are teaching children. What are we teaching children? We are teaching them values, right? We're talking about upholding truth. We're talking about values of commitment, values of respect to the environment. And the very children, and many of the children now have gone to already experienced Mollem, the forests, we talk about the environment. So when they see this, they see the beauty in nature, and then they see destruction. They also are there is a conflict.
of
They
course.
say we want to uphold the truth. And you talked about you know, using social media. What is the extent? See, one thing that social media has allowed us, or even media and communication, is to be able to uphold the truth that we are talking. Today, if a police comes, what happened on Liberation Day was all captured.
Correct.
So there were no
Yes.
lies.
Absolutely.
It was all captured. They were
Absolutely.
all facts. So youngsters saw this and they were appalled.
No,
that-
what I'm saying,
and
I didn't
nobody
say
is
that. I'm saying
telling.
everything has its place.
Right.
That's my thing.
Of
This
course.
has its place
But I
for
don't think, I think there has been a build up because we've also had voices of dissent been imprisoned under UAPA. There are so many, you know, activists who have already been silenced, or at least have been tried. Yes,
black.
yes,
See,
correct.
the-
So it is not just COVID, it has happened before that.
Right.
But COVID has also been able to bring out the truth in front of the youngsters.
glare, right?
Youngsters,
It's been glare.
earlier they were listening to their parents, to the, you know, to the elders and what was told to them.
Or on the
Today
phones.
they are able to access it.
Yeah, no, it's
you
like
know?
a pressure cooker. No, so many things have been happening. So now it's like the whistle is. You can hear the whistle,
Yeah.
and if things are not corrected, I see that there's so much of anger in the people, much more than what
Anger
we.
is positive, I feel.
Yeah,
Positive. positive.
is,
No,
yeah.
what I'm
It
saying
is,
is,
yeah.
it is positive.
Yeah.
It will bring
It's a
about
very
a
active
change.
That being as it is, what I
No,
see,
that's what
COVID
I'm
also,
saying.
no?
It's a positive
Yes,
thing
it is a
that you
positive.
can see that the quest for change and putting things in place is far much higher
Right.
than we
Yeah.
saw in the
Earlier.
past.
And it's a very genuine,
And
it's
it's,
an
Yeah,
like
but
an
we have to see
innocent
how it is
child.
utilized. Yeah.
When does a person get angry? When he has concern for something. When he sees that there is something worth saving, that is when you fight to save it.
Correct.
And that is something quite often misused. Like if there's an accident, road accident, someone has fractured, there'll be people who come forward with one kerchief, collect all the gold, everything from there. And when the person is hospitalized, you find that person who has collected the gold isn't there. The government is doing exactly that with the farm laws.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or with the double tracking. When everybody is engaged in a tragedy, it is benefiting from it.
Yeah, and so there are a
Actually
lot
taking
of
benefit
layers,
from
you know,
them.
Glenn. What happens is, even when I went on ground, you know, I met people like a person who has a house that is coming, you know, and been
In the
affected
way.
by the
Yeah,
road widening.
yeah.
Another
Yes.
person. So there are people who are personally impacted, and there are people who are largely impacted
That's
because
it.
of their passion for their state, for their land, for their village, you know, and also for the country, because the Western Ghats is not an asset for me. It's a world asset. So everybody has a say and, you know, wants to...
And we have seen what happens when people don't follow the norms regarding to Western Ghats. Let's just go, for a minute I'll talk about Gadgil report. We remember when
Yes.
the Gadgil
Yes,
report
yes.
came in,
Yeah.
and then the government decided to change its laws through sitting another committee to change its stance on that. And Kerala took extensive developments on this frontier of the Western
And then
Ghats.
there was-
We saw what
Yes.
kind of destruction the
Himachal
floods
with
were.
the floods, yeah.
Yes.
So we are essentially, what we are doing is we are trying to prevent any such sort of greater tragedy to fall upon
Right.
here. And you know, talking about COVID as a cause of this descent, what you were saying,
Byproduct.
byproduct of this descent, the descent being a byproduct of COVID. The thing is, when there has been a deliberate attempt to suppress the people in a great sense, and COVID naturally kept us suppressed in our houses,
Yes.
unable to communicate. It was just easier for the government. It's not that it was taking place at this magnitude before. COVID allowed it to escalate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there was no active participation of the
Yeah,
people in
yeah.
anything at that point. Even if you want to seek legal redressal, for those
Court
21
yeah.
days,
also was
courts were not
yeah.
functioning
That
at
was
all.
the
Yeah, I know.
biggest
So also decisions were
drawback.
hurried.
Hurried.
You know,
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
is a particular
It's just you
time
could take it
frame
and finish
where
it.
you call stakeholders, they are allowed to, you know, express their concerns, but that process was all hurried. You know, decisions were hurriedly taken, taking
The
advantage of the
redressal
situation.
mechanisms were not there.
Guys,
Right.
I think this is this can be a full half an hour debate. All this exactly these points which you're talking about. Now we have run out of time, and it's been interesting. It's been an interesting year, I'm sure, and the points of views may be same, may be different, but it's been interesting. Everybody, it's good. I'm really happy that, because earlier people used to say Goans, no, they sit. They'll not do anything, they'll go, they'll sit in their bar or their tavern, they'll discuss. At least now Goans are coming out. This I have not seen after the 80s when the student movement had started. We were there at that time, but now, thank you very much. Thank you, Sabina. Thank you, Talullah.
Welcome.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Miguel. Thank you, Shaunak. Thanks a lot. And keep watching Goa 365.